You're listening to It Came From the Radio. You know, this is Jennifer Lee Feldman. Sometimes I'm Dr. Feldy, but Dr. Feldy is very busy right now with a patient doing lip injections. So right now I'm here with Ren Valentino. Long intro. Warning, he's done a lot. So I want to give you a little clues to what he's done so you're familiar with, what we're talking about today. So he's an actor, an entrepreneur, film producer, movie critic, workshop instructor, and writer. And I'm sure more things, we're not just the work we do, we are other things as well. As a best-selling author of 21 novels, Wren writes in multiple genres, primarily romance, thriller, young adult, horror, and to date he's written more than 70 stage plays that have been performed in 12 countries in 3 languages. I barely speak English, and I forgot how to speak Spanish, so that's really impressive. 8 of his original screenplays and 7 of his stage plays have been adapted for the screen. Wren is the CEO and owner of Blue Dasher Productions. And as a film producer, Wren has helped bring more than 80 independent movies to the screen, including A Beast in the Manor, Dark Feast, Ever After, The Farmhouse Murders, Hollow Lake, I Feel Fine, Shredded, A Soldier's Descent, and more. As an actor, Wren has worked on 40 films. His credits include Amityverse, Desert Fiends 2, Four Nights in Fear Forest, Friday the 13th, Blood Loss, Gobblefoot. I gotta see that one. I'm in a movie, Amityville Turkey Day. I don't know if that's related. The Last Sleepover, Night of the Strangers, Paula Takes the Stage, Shadows of the Night, Snow Falling on Pumpkins 2, Truths and a Lie, Venus Die Trap, and many more. Currently, almost done. Well, actually, I cut it off, so there's like 2 more pages, but we're gonna have to stop. Currently, Ren plays fashionista Velvet Vane on the popular web series Horror Hound Bites, Forever Entertainment. And next up, he'll be playing newscaster Braden Eisner in the slasher film Midnight Maniac with horror icon co-star Felissa Rose, known for Sleepaway Camp, best known for that, and many other things. And he's the best-selling author of 21 novels. I cut it off, there's way more. So welcome, Ren Valentino.
Thank
My
you.
first question, you're welcome. First question, get right into it. Why did you do all this work? What's this massive stack of accomplishments all about?
No, that's an excellent question. Excellent question. I'm sure it's a form of insanity, but I'll answer it a little bit more in a literary way. But it's really about storytelling. It's really just about
Mhm.
like recognizing at a really young age that I loved stories and reading and just the concept of a beginning and a middle and an end of a story, maybe not necessarily in that order. And just finding that within of like that was my thing was just to be able to
Mhm.
tell stories in different ways, with my face and body and voice as an actor, with, a script as a writer, with novels as a fiction writer. So just sort of really embracing the life at a really young age. I had amazing teachers and really wonderful librarians that put really important books in my hand that transformed me and led me onto that path, if you will. I was really lucky. I published my first short story when I was 15. I was in high school and just kind of went from there. And then all the other things kind of, I think sometimes when we're open to the universe of it sending things our way, that the universe knows that we need before we even do sometimes. It just kind of opened up those floodgates for me and allowing stuff to come my way, in terms of people, in terms of collaborations and other artists and so forth, and just allowing that to happen and thrive and flourish. And I think the driving force, because you would ask the question about like why,
Yeah.
somebody asked me a question when I was in grad school as a studying my MFA in writing, and somebody said, "Do you write for yourself or do you write for your younger self?" And it was such a like it seems like such a simple question, but it had never been asked before. And I thought
Yeah,
started
that's
to think I
interesting.
really look to write the stories that I needed and wanted when I was a younger person trying to navigate the world. And so that kind of started to fuel a little bit more of like a specific purpose of why. So.
Yeah, speaking of the universe giving you what you need or want, which I entertain that idea. Another idea, I was just talking about this yesterday. I've noticed, I'm 41, there's a lot of people that saw things in me and told me I was certain things or certain characters like 5 years, 20 years before I actually did it.
Hmm.
Say, oh, you're this, you're that. I'm not going to get into it, because it'll sound conceited, but it's like, yeah, that ended up happening. And a lot of the times people tell you who you are and they're totally wrong. And so you
Hmm.
shouldn't really give too much credence, never get too
Hmm.
high on your compliments and never get too low on your critiques. It's a dance every single day. But yes, sometimes
Absolutely.
people will see things in you that you have no idea you have this in you, and it's like, maybe you should think about that. Maybe you should go down that path that you never even
Hmm.
considered. Yeah. Or
Yeah,
maybe
no,
maybe
that's
God
very
speaks through people. I don't know. Maybe there's like entities or gods are speaking through other people to give you the info. That's
Yeah,
what
yeah. I think sometimes we're just a satellite and we have to be open to those messages and then like sort of decipher them and like but you talked about timing is so important because sometimes it's yeah, you take it in, but it's not sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, that it's the right time. But my
hmm
problem is always like when is the right time? Like recognizing
mm,
that for myself. I'm like, oh, now's the time to start learning Italian or whatever it is that somebody had
right,
suggested. I love that what
right.
you said about other people seeing things in ourselves that we might not be seeing yet. I really like that
hmm
because that has certainly happened in my life and in my creative journey for sure.
I mean, speaking of, you play fashionista Velvet Vein. Next question. Maybe there's people that saw you as a fashionista. Maybe you never saw
Yeah.
yourself like it. And then a director saw you as it and cast you it. So you play fashionista Velvet Vein on the popular web series,
Yeah.
Hound Bites. How
Hmm.
did you create your character? Is there any people that you used as reference? Or when you're speaking, are you ever thinking of another actor, someone you know, when you're delivering the lines?
Yeah, those are great questions, and I haven't got to talk about how Horror Hound Bites quite yet, so I'm excited about that. But Mandy Camino, I think is how you say her last name. She writes every episode of that show, and she
Mhm.
writes the most delicious dialogue for me. Like we talked about the character when they first started producing the show. Her husband Anthony, I think, is the producer and director, and they're together. They're
Mhm.
forever entertainment. So it's a husband and wife team, which is really exciting to work with, and they can put together such an amazing cast. Like a lot of us are voice actors, and so we brought a lot of those sort of like fun nuances that we had already in our vocabulary and our delivery. It just kind of heightened it up on camera in a really fun way. It's very funny. It's a very funny show. But to answer your question, I honestly I went back to Joan Rivers and Fashion Police and
Oh,
just how she was so biting and so like unfiltered in a really fun way and like sort of all-knowing, even though she herself wasn't like a super fashionista. So, and I'm
hmm
playing a fashionista in the afterlife. And so I
oh,
feel like it's such a fun spin in that supernatural way of like what was my career like before when I was living my character versus now and
right.
like perception, you know. But I have like every episode, I tell you, I get like the most fun things to say, and it's all because of Mandy, who writes such great uh, script dialogue for all of us. But I just really appreciate it so much, and so much fun. It's such a fun character because it's very larger than life. It's very over the top. It's very
Had
campy.
a feeling.
It's all those things and I have not done a lot of comedy in my life, which I love
Oh,
comedy, right? And so I
oh,
usually do like
obsessed.
classic Shakespeare, like British comedy, but not American comedy. And
Wow.
so having that sort of like, really fun kind of autonomy to just run with it. And Anthony and Mandy have been so great about just like letting me stay in my lane and doing my thing and just, giving them as much as I can.
Well, your character is in the afterlife, and there's
Mhm.
conspiracy theories that, Joan Rivers ran her mouth so much, and then that's the reason why she died. There's some people that think that she was
Mm.
killed because she said certain things.
Yeah, she
I'm
pissed
not
off a
going to
lot
get
of
into
people.
it. This is not a political show, but
Right, right.
there's a character that people throw around the name Big Mike. I'm not
Mm.
saying whether I believe, but yeah, they're saying that Joan Rivers was calling out, some president's wife about some stuff, and maybe that's why she's not here. Do I know?
Yeah.
I have no idea. So, you know,
Yeah, I was a big fan of hers. Yeah, I still am, but I never found like a connection in terms of like performance or creativity. And so,
mhm.
like when I was sort of searching for like the core of Velvet Vein, I was like, this is like a male version of Joan Rivers. And so I that's when I
Yeah.
went back to her and looked at her mostly her stand up because
hmm
she had a really specific delivery of how she hit the punchline and so I definitely was influenced greatly by that. But who wouldn't be? I mean, one of the greatest comics that ever lived.
So, switching gears now,
Yeah.
this is one of my theories. I have a lot of theories and a lot of rules in my life. So, I've noticed this. It's not a hard and fast rule, but there's a lot of truth to it. I found like
Mhm.
managing life and managing a film set requires varied skill sets. You might have to know like how to turn off the water, how to uh, undo fire alarms, and also how to put up a Christmas tree and wrap gifts that are behind me. Those are fake gifts, but whatever. You have to have varied skill sets and abilities, and usually stability. You got to be able to put out fires
Mhm.
metaphorically, and also sometimes the fires are real. I have, marks on my carpet from real fires and photo shoots. So my theory is basically like if one person can manage their life well, there's a chance that they can also manage a film production well, a chance.
Mhm.
And if they
Mhm.
can smoothly produce multiple films, I've
Mhm.
observed many directors produce multiple films. I've noticed that they also have that capability to possibly manage their real lives because you have to manage productive relationships on a film set and in real life to be successful. So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a correlation between the balance of life, work life, whatever we want to call that balance that we're navigating constantly, especially as creative people, where sometimes the world around us is not so conducive to a creative life or creativity kind of mindset. So I think managing all those things, I think it was sort of air traffic controlling, plate spinning, whatever metaphor you want to use in terms of
Hmm.
having multiple things happening at the same time. I think what I've gleaned the most from film production and being a film producer is anticipation, is
Hmm.
not to be idle, is that you've got to be thinking ahead that long term. Short term is obviously very important, getting through the day, right? You have your shot list, you have your storyboard, you have all your things, call times, all that stuff sort of
Hmm.
happening. But what I love the most about film work, which really lends itself to my background in theater as well, is the collaborativeness that has to happen.
Hmm.
Not one person can get a film made, right? And so I feel like recognizing how important each person is, whether it's a production assistant or whether it's an
Yes.
executive producer, that person needs to be there in order for that film to be completed. And whatever role they're playing is significant in a in its own way, and just recognizing that. But I really think about troubleshooting ahead of time. That anticipation I was talking about is all about like seeing potential problems and having that plan B, C, D, E, F, however many letters you want in place so that when you have to put those contingency plans into action, you've got them rolled up your sleeve, virtually, and to pull that out and put it into action very quickly. I think a good producer really understands the director's vision, but really, again, film starts with the script. And as somebody who writes scripts and as an actor, I feel like what I bring to that process and what I learn every time is about the processes of all the artistic people that are on the set. Because I've been a director, because I've been a writer, because I've been an actor, I can understand with the actor's creative process that they need a minute to warm up, flip into character, find the emotional core that they need. What, even if it's comedy, right? Comedy is not easy to do, right? And so there has to be an element of truth in it for it to land. And so I feel like just knowing that those boundaries and having that respect for everyone's process is so essential. It's something I continue to learn, and then it informs me in my processes and all those things
Hmm.
too by watching others and learning and just being an observer. Really, right? We're all really lifelong learners when you think about it in some capacity.
Hopefully. I mean, some
Yeah,
people just don't learn, but I often
it's
reference
true.
Along Came Polly with Ben Stiller. He's a risk assessment analyst, and I often
Mhm.
call myself that. And I've even been someone rudely, because this is someone who was disorganized, goes, "Are you an attorney?" I mean, the guy's everything was falling apart on his comedy thing. He wasn't thinking ahead. I always think of beep boop bop. What could go wrong? What could
Right,
mess up? I'm not the director on one film set recently, but I checked the weather and I saw like 36 hours ahead of time or so that we're gonna have a major snowstorm, and we did. I mean, the AD couldn't even make it to set. So I texted the director. It's not my job. I'm the makeup artist on this one. And I said,
right,
hey, you might want to email everybody and tell everyone that there's snow so they leave like an hour earlier because otherwise I'm going to be the only one that does the snowstorm. I'm taking precautions. I'm going to be there on time. Everyone's going to be late. We're going to have snow day. So it's like you, as a director, you got to be watching the weather and telling everyone, how to get their car out. And if
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And how to
that's
change,
like
you got to change that shot list really quick. Because if you're filming interior scenes and your movie
right.
takes place in the middle of the summer,
Yes. And
you
also
gotta,
maybe if if someone has a crappy car and they're not going to make it to set, okay, get a new
yeah,
makeup artist,
yeah,
get a new AD because they're
yeah,
not coming, and think ahead like that. You got to be a
yeah,
psychic.
yeah. I
Anyway,
know it's true. It's true. Yeah.
so all right, let's see. Sacrifices. Okay, let's switch totally. Do you think Hollywood is dead, or is
Mm.
Hollywood still the place to be in your eyes when it comes to film production and acting?
I think there's a renaissance. I'm very optimistic. I think, yes, I do think that elements knew it and know it are dead and buried. Like, I'll just be truthfully honest. I think the way that films get made, the way that films get distributed, same for television,
Mhm.
has changed. I mean, just, people are not going to the movie theater as much as they used to. I mean, there's numbers that show that, studies and so forth.
Yeah.
I think that there last year we had an incredible year of film. Hamnet, I mean, Weapons, you name it. There were some extraordinary films. Maybe not so much in terms of originality necessarily, but certainly in the way of delivery and the way stories were being presented. We were talking about movies a lot more last year than we had in quite some time. And I
Mhm.
look at the independent filmmakers, right? I look at like Sofia Coppola with The Last Show, or Gia Coppola, I'm sorry, with The Last Showgirl with Pamela Anderson's a great example of that, of like those very small budgeted. When I say small budget, I'd like $1 million, which is a lot of money for an independent filmmaker.
Right.
But
Right.
in terms of Hollywood standards, small budget. And
It's
just,
nothing.
having that autonomy to tell those brave stories about, real people going through extraordinary situations and changing them forever. And I feel like the audience is starting to look more for depth and versions of themselves because the world is
Mhm.
changing so much and they're trying to make sense of it. So I think more and
Yeah.
more people are going to look to movies. And I think that there are some really exciting, clever filmmakers. Chloe Zhao, of course, is a great example of that have their finger on that pulse of those changes that are happening, and they're going to bring that renaissance into it. I think it's going to be on the backs of the independent filmmakers that really make a difference and a change in the next, 3 to 5 years. But yeah,
Hmm.
change is coming in a really great, beautiful way. I think AI is a consideration for everyone on story writers. Everybody is thinking about that and how that is impacting and how it can impact. I think that's something that definitely will have to get navigated or thought about during that renaissance for sure. But yeah, I think really, looking at some of the films that are heading our way very soon are just very, very exciting, and the filmmakers that are making them. We're getting a lot more global cinema. Like It Was Just an Accident is an extraordinarily fantastic film by an Iranian director that was made in collaboration with France. If anybody hasn't seen that, it's just a very brave, important film. But I believe that the global cinema, international cinema, is going to start to tell stories more mainstream, and get more mainstream attention
Yeah.
because they can take a little bit more chances sometimes in the sort of the more formulaic that we have to do sometimes in American films. So that was a long answer.
No,
So,
no. I wish this was a longer format because I was just thinking, God, I have three more questions to ask you. We're not going to get to. So I hope you can come back on. I can ask
I
you
would
more
love to. Thank
questions.
you. Yeah.
And I mean, I get updates on like marketing and Hollywood and tech. So one of the updates I got was that Unilever, I think they invested, I want to say it was like 30 million. It was a number really high in UGC, the user generated content, the
Hmm.
influencers for people that
Hmm.
don't know this. And so instead of the TV marketing, these big production companies where you have, all these crazy cameras and huge budgets to make the commercial, they're really going towards the independent creator who just shoots stuff in their living room at home. And that's
Hmm.
what they're putting their money into right now. So we're going to see people that you've never seen before.
Hmm.
Maybe people like me, I don't know, I'm sick of commercial stuff. It's kind of soul sucking, but influencery types who like to do this stuff, I guess, make a couple
Yeah.
$100 because the rates are getting lower. They're all over the board, but they're kind of low because these people are becoming a dime a dozen cranking out advertisements. But anyway, I'm gonna have you one more question. This is have to be like a 1 minute answer,
Okay,
even
I
though I'd
got
love
you.
to have you here for like 3 days straight and give you a bunch of coffee and we don't even sleep and we're just going to interview you for 3 days straight. How's that?
I'm down. I'm
It'll
down.
be it'll be a methamphetamine fueled interview, 3 days straight. I'm just kidding. No, don't do math. Don't do meth. Anyway,
No,
I'm doing a movie about that, so meth is in my mind. I've
I know.
never tried it. Don't do
I've
it.
written about it, so I feel you. I
Don't
gotcha.
do it. Don't do it. All right. So now, if you could tell your younger teenage self one thing, what advice would you give yourself?
To absolutely that you know what's best for you better than anyone would be the number one
Hmm,
thing.
okay.
To turn off that inner critic that you do not suck, that you are really good at what you do. Believe in
Okay.
yourself. I think it would all be about like empowerment. Anything I would say to my younger self would be about you got this, do
Yeah.
this. And just remember to be very gracious to anyone and everyone who's helping you along the way. I
Mhm.
felt that I was, when I was moving into different levels, but I think we can never, in this day and age, continue to practice grace and gratitude in all forms every chance we get.
Definitely. I had my friend who flew in last night. We brought him into my dad's dental office at like 9:13 p.m. Who's counting, for a surprise dental visit because I appreciate him as a friend. I want to make sure his teeth are taken care of. That's being thankful. That's really
Yeah,
honoring friends.
you're a good
Anyway,
friend. You're a really good friend.
too many people. Yeah, no, I've
Yeah,
gotten some good Yelp reviews on that. I like in other areas, so I can be confident in this. I don't
yeah,
ask me anything
I
about
love
finance or plumbing.
it.
So anyway, we're at the end of the interview. You want to give your socials and website where people can find you?
Yeah, I'm at renvalentino.com. All my socials are at renvalentino. Please reach out if I can help or promote or support in any way. I'm always happy to.
And that's Ren, WREN. So
Yes.
that concludes our interview. And now back to the studio with Mark Torres for more It Came from the Radio.